My name is Kayla. I'm 22 years old, and I work at a Home Depot just outside a small town called Millbrook in Georgia. Because I don't attend school full-time, my manager would sometimes schedule me for the overnight shift, back when the store was running 24-hour operations. It's a big store, so there would still be a handful of employees around. My shift on this particular night ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. There were maybe 2 other people doing stock work with me and 1 person covering the self-checkout up front. Given that our store sits off a rural highway, foot traffic at those hours was close to nothing. Restocking was pretty much the only thing happening. I didn't really know the other employees on shift with me, and the store was big enough that you rarely crossed paths anyway. I started my night organizing the paint section and running returns back to their proper aisles. I had my earbuds in because no one would bother me about it at that hour. A customer came by the paint aisle, and it was around 11:15 at that point, so it wasn't alarming. People still trickled in until about midnight. He asked me where the wood stain was, and I walked him 2 aisles over and pointed it out. He thanked me, and we accidentally made eye contact for a beat too long on the way out. Mildly awkward. He disappeared, and I went back to work. Time moved on, and the store emptied out. By around 1 a.m., the whole place felt hollow. I had moved over to the lighting section and was doing a lot of back and forth between the floor and the stock room, rolling carts out and breaking down boxes. At some point, while I was bent down stacking boxes on the lower shelf, I had the feeling someone was watching me. When I looked down the aisle, there was nobody. But when I glanced through the gap in the bottom shelf, I could see someone's shoes on the other side. Standing completely still. I stood up slowly and walked to the end of the aisle to peek around, and I felt my stomach drop a little when I recognized the face. It was the same man from the paint section over an hour ago. I kept my composure and walked past him casually, but glanced at his hands. He wasn't holding a single item, not a bag, not a product, nothing. No one browses a Home Depot for over an hour at 1 a.m. and leaves empty-handed. That didn't sit right with me at all. I finished what I was doing in the lighting aisle, loaded my empty cart, and brought it back to the stockroom. I stayed in there longer than I needed to, sitting on a step stool, scrolling through my phone, just to give myself a breather. Something felt off. When I finally decided to get back on the floor, I switched to the garden section on the complete opposite end of the store, just to put distance between me and wherever he was. I was organizing bags of mulch and soil near the far end of the garden center when the side door that connected to the main store swung open hard. There was a tall shelving unit near the entrance that had gaps between the stacked bags, and I ducked low and looked through. It was him, walking slowly, looking around. I crouched down behind a pallet of stone pavers and pulled a flat of potted plants in front of me. The garden center is already loud at night because of the ventilation fans that keep the plants from overheating. He walked through the section, and I stayed down for what felt like forever. When I finally raised my head, he was 2 feet away from me, crouched down to my level, with this wide smile on his face. "Ah!" I screamed before I could stop myself. He reached toward me, and I shoved the flat of plants sideways right at his legs and bolted past him. He stumbled but didn't grab me. I ran until I found my coworker Derek in the lumber section and told him to stay with me. A minute later, the man came walking up to us, calm as anything, and introduced himself as a district loss prevention officer doing an unannounced audit. Said he was observing employee behavior throughout the store and hadn't meant to frighten me. He said coming into the garden center was part of a routine walkthrough. My coworker Derek nodded along like this was totally normal. I asked him why he crouched down near me, and he said he was trying to get a look at the inventory label on the pallet. Then he pulled out what looked like a clipboard, told me to keep up the good work, and walked off down the main aisle. I called after him asking for his name, and he said, "Gary," without turning around. Then he was gone. The next morning I called my store manager, Dennis, and asked if any loss prevention visit had been scheduled overnight. He said absolutely not, and that no one by that description or name matched anyone from the district LP team. They pulled the camera footage and filed a report. The footage showed the man following me through 4 different sections of the store across a 3-hour window. The police got involved and identified him from the footage. I told Dennis I wasn't comfortable doing overnight shifts anymore. He moved me to days immediately. I still work there now, but I don't put my earbuds in anymore, no matter what time of day. My name is Kayla. Same Kayla from before, actually. But this second story happened about 8 months after the Home Depot incident, and it shook me just as bad, if not worse. It was the Saturday before Christmas. The Home Depot I work at was staying open late for the holiday rush. I was shopping there on my day off, which I know sounds crazy, but I needed a specific set of under-cabinet lights for my mom's kitchen, and I had my employee discount. I found the last box of the ones on sale, the display model reduced for clearance. Right as I picked it up, a large man stepped around the corner of the aisle, heavy-set, wearing a stained jacket, a little disheveled. He pointed at the box in my hands and told me he needed those lights. I told him I was sorry, but it was the last set. He got loud, started saying I grabbed them on purpose, that I'd seen him coming down the aisle, that I was being deliberately inconsiderate. He was making enough noise that a few other shoppers stopped and looked. The whole thing lasted maybe 2 minutes before I just walked away toward the registers. He kept raising his voice at my back. A woman in line next to me said, "Some people need to be escorted out." And that actually made me laugh a little. It helped. I got home around 9:30. My mom was already asleep, and my younger brother was in his room with the door shut. I went out back to sit on the deck and open the box, just to look through the instructions. The motion sensor light on the back fence clicked on. It does that. We have a tree line behind the yard, and deer and raccoons trigger it constantly. I looked out toward the tree line, but couldn't see anything moving. I went back inside anyway and sat at the kitchen table. About 20 minutes in, my car alarm started going off in the driveway. I grabbed my keys off the counter and stepped onto the front porch and clicked it off. Then I noticed a truck parked at the curb in front of our house. An unfamiliar truck, which was odd because we're in a residential neighborhood where everyone parks in their driveways or their garage. I stared at it for a second and realized someone was sitting in the driver's seat. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. I went upstairs and knocked on my mom's door and told her I thought someone might be outside who meant us harm. My mom came down with me, and we both looked through the side light window next to the front door. The truck was still there. My mom went to the peephole and went completely pale. She stepped back from the door and put both hands over her mouth. I looked. The large man from the store was standing on our front porch, barely a foot from the door. The handle rattled as he tried to open it. My mom grabbed my arm and pulled me back. My brother had come downstairs by then, half asleep, and immediately went rigid when he realized what was happening. The rattling stopped. My mom was already on the phone with 911, voice low and shaking. A few minutes of quiet went by, nothing outside but the wind. Then, from the back of the house, there was a crash, the sound of something shattering. The back door window. My mom and brother screamed. I told them to go upstairs, and I ran toward the den to throw the interior lock on the door that connects to the back porch. I pressed myself flat against the wall beside it and waited. Nothing hit the door.
No movement that I could hear.
I heard a patrol car outside, its brief chirp of the siren pulling up. I went out the front and led them around the back. They found him, crouched in the corner of the back porch, backed up against the siding. He was arrested right there. The whole time they were putting him in cuffs, he was screaming at me by name, which told the officers everything they needed to know about how he'd found the house. The responding officers said he had a history and that his behavior that night suggested he was not in a clear state of mind. They told us to get some sleep. We didn't really. But we pressed every charge available to us, and to my knowledge, he didn't get out for a long time. My name is Marcus. I'm 27 now, but this happened when I was 24 and finishing up my last year of a business degree. I picked up a weekend overnight stocking job at a large grocery chain to help cover the last stretch of student loans. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was simple enough. Sign for deliveries, break down pallets, stock the floor after close. Standard shifts ran midnight to 7 a.m. There were usually only 2 or 3 of us in the building at a time. On a Friday night in early November, I remember it clearly. I was about 4 hours into my shift working the canned goods aisle. The 2 other workers, both named something I'd heard but never really locked in, were somewhere else in the store. I was midway through a cart of soup cans when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye toward the end of the aisle. Someone walking past. But both coworkers were in their vests, and the figure I saw was in dark clothing. I walked to the end of the aisle and looked out into the main lane of the store, empty as far as I could see in both directions. I called out both coworkers' names toward the back. No answer. I stood there for a moment, shrugged it off, and went back to work. About an hour later, I was in the cereal aisle when I heard a sound down near the dry pasta section, a sharp, sudden crash. I jogged over and found an entire row of boxed pasta on the floor, boxes spread halfway across the aisle. The shelf itself was intact. You'd have to physically drag the boxes off the shelf to knock that many down at once. I picked them up, stacked them back, and stood at the end of the aisle for a while, just listening. Nothing. Then I heard a sound, that I can only describe as a low hum, almost like someone keeping a note in their throat. It was coming from the next aisle over. I walked around to it and stopped hard. A man was standing at the far end of the aisle, facing away from me, but with his head tilted back in my direction so I could see the side of his face. As soon as I registered him, he walked around the corner and I heard his footsteps accelerating into a run somewhere deeper in the store. I did not chase him. I went looking for my co-workers instead. Found one of them, Leo, over in the frozen foods section and told him there was someone in the building who shouldn't be. We didn't have radios. I told him to let the other guy know if he saw him. Then I excused myself because I'd been holding off a bathroom break for over an hour and I couldn't anymore. The employee restroom was at the back of the building near the loading dock. I went into a stall and sat down. The outer door opened. I said, "Hey, who's there?" Silence. Then that humming sound again, quiet and low, just outside the stall door. The shadow of someone's feet appeared under the gap at the bottom. They moved closer until they stopped directly in front of my stall. I sat completely still. The humming went on for what felt like a full minute. Then it stopped. I heard breathing. I had Leo's number in my phone and called him immediately, talking loud and clear, telling him to get to the bathroom right now. I kept the line open. Heard the outer door open and close, waited another 30 seconds. Leo walked in and said he hadn't seen anyone in the hallway. I came out of the stall and we did a sweep of the back area together. Nothing. We stayed paired up for the rest of the shift after that. When I messaged my manager the next afternoon, she said the overnight security camera system had malfunctioned and returned corrupted footage from the hours in question. No clean recording, no evidence of anyone entering the building, no forced entry that anyone could find. She believed me, but without footage, there was nothing to formally report. I kept working the overnight for a few more months after that, but I never again walked to that back bathroom alone. Whatever was in the building that night, I have no good explanation for, and I've thought about it more times than I'd like to admit.